Hello everyone. Blow up your TV, throw away your paper, plant a little garden, try and find Jesus on your own, sang the great John Prine, folk singer, songwriter who died yesterday. Today is Maundy Thursday, when we reckon with the sting of death and with the mixed record of our own lives and our inability often to love others as we ought or might do. And here again, the command of Jesus to those who try to follow him: love one another as I have loved you. This is his new commandment. I once had the honour of driving John Prine to Heathrow Airport in an old Austin Montego. I was working for the Cambridge Folk Festival at the time and was his driver for the festival one year back in the early 90s. And I remember that occasion not only for the privilege of doing that, but for winding up the window on a homeless person while we were waiting to leave. And John and his partner were in the back of the car, and for some reason I considered it necessary to protect him from the interference of this needy stranger, and immediately felt awkward and guilty, and we've both seen that, and I still feel that pang of why did I just do that? And as we look back on our lives, so often our memories, sometimes even of the golden moments, there are the harsher, sharper memories that we don't like to face up to. But this is a long weekend for facing up to that mixed account. This morning I want to read to you from a book of mine I wrote about 10 years ago, a Lent book, and this is a piece called Letting It Fall. Recently I was strolling past the off-licence as two delivery men were unloading a pallet piled 6 feet high with cases of wine and corseted with shrink wrap. They'd managed to haul the pallet trolley off the pavement and onto the road, but the load had been badly stacked and was listing precariously. As it began to topple, they hurried round, trying to embrace it upright like a sloshed companion. Sensing the call to assist, I was in my collar. I sped over to offer a reassuring presence or see if anyone needed a pastoral chat. It seemed not. So I joined them in their doomed attempt to hold up the leaning tower of Pinot Noir. Several others gamely did the same, though we all got glued in the same dilemma where we couldn't push the straining boxes up and equally daren't let them go. So we simply stood there, wheezing in what you'd have to call an impasse. Presently, a passerby sidled up and with the wisdom of experience said, "Lads, it's not going to work. You've got to let it fall." He was right, of course. However reluctant we were to admit it, our tipsy cargo needed to collapse. And so on the count of 3, we dived out of the way while the bottles, sensing their moment had come, tumbled and shattered, spilling the wine like blood into the gutter. In the Gospels, Jesus appears to have taken a similar view of the teetering burden of religious law supported by faithful Jews. Try as they might to live a righteous life, they were trapped, one way or another, by its cumbersome demands. This is what St. Paul, who as a former Pharisee was in a position to know, called a yoke of slavery. You know, the yoke, that wooden bar for carrying what you need to carry in life. We all have one of those. And he despaired of ever being able to lift it. "I can will what is right," he wrote to the Romans with disarming frankness, "but I can't do it. I can will what is right, but I can't do it." For Jesus, The whole problem focused on the temple in Jerusalem, the massive towering edifice of organised religion that he and the disciples wander around in the days before his arrest. Galilean tourists, they gaze in awe up at the portico, and one of them says, "Look, teacher, what large stones, what large buildings." To which Jesus, like a wise builder, sucks in the air over his teeth and responds in so many words, "It's no good, lads. This whole lot is going to have to come down." Around the same time, he prophesied that he would raise the temple up again within 3 days of this unavoidable destruction. Given that Herod's temple covered an area 4 times the size of Windsor Castle and had taken 46 years to build, this must have seemed improbable even to his friends. But such was Jesus' popular support by the time he reached Jerusalem that it was a claim taken seriously, deadly seriously, by the chief priests. Not because he'd literally take a wrecking ball to the temple, though he displayed an inclination to do so by driving out the money changers, but because he taught a new kind of faith that bypassed its regulations altogether, one based around allegiance to himself. This was the easy yoke that he offered to all who laboured and were heavy laden. It's what made him so threatening and ultimately intolerable to the religious authorities. And as the gospel story reaches its climax, Jesus appears to take the decision to bear in his person the whole penalty of the religious law, as if to pull down the temple around himself like Samson amidst the Philistines. He clearly saw that this was the way in which a new kind of law, a new testament, would be inaugurated, whereby his followers might be freed from the impossible trap of knowing how they ought to live, but never being strong enough to manage it. Spiders in a bathtub, always slipping back down. Jesus would make his own body the means of escape. He would become like a hopeless sinner and soak up the desperate consequences so that his little flock would never have to again. Henceforth, faith would be defined by allegiance to him and the heart of the Old Covenant, the Old Testament, love of God, love of neighbour. Everything else, you suspect, might need to collapse. Passiontide is the time when we recognise our uselessness in the face of sin, our inability to hold up the hazardous burden of righteousness. The time when we take the advice of the wise passerby who says, "Come on, lads, it's not going to work. You've got to let it fall. You go, let it fall on me." God bless you as you go to ground.